Benjamin Franklin once said, "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." The fact is, quality matters. Join us as we make quality fun, interesting, and accessible to companies of all levels. Quality Matters is a must-listen for all things quality. Listen in, ask questions, and get back to doing what matters most. Quality Matters, brought to you by Texas Quality Assurance, where quality management gets simplified.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Quality Matters podcast. I am Kyle, and this is
Darcy.
So we are back with another guest. It's actually a guest that his name's Tom Taormina. Hope I pronounced that right. He'll correct me if not, but I'm terrible with names. But Tom has started working with us a little bit here recently and has just a really fantastic story about, kind of how he got into quality, his career, just really interesting stuff. So I think it'd be great just to get a chance to talk with him, learn a little bit from his history and experience. So with that, Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be with you, Kyle and Darcy. Don't forget Darcy.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom.
People don't realize how much she does to help out around here. I'd be lost.
Right. I'm sure that's correct.
At home, work, everything, you name it. Oh.
I concur.
But behind every man is a woman with a wooden spoon.
That's awesome. Well, hey,
I didn't know we could use the spoon on husbands too. We just use it for the kids.
Yeah, been there, done that.
Oh man. Well, Tom, you have quite the kind of background and experience. I know you've been just absolutely, phenomenal helping us out with some different projects here recently. But if you would just kind of give us, I hate doing the big fancy introduction. I kind of would rather just hear it from the person's point of view. So just kind of give me a little bit of background as to, who you are and how you got here and everything from why you've probably got the space background to all the books you've written.
Well, thanks. And, I think it's an interesting story. And today it's pretty poignant because of all of the changes going on in our society. When I was in high school in New York, I heard President Kennedy say we were going to the moon by 1970. And he was talking to me. I know he was. It's because I got bid. I got to be part of this space program and the moon program. So on my 19th birthday, I packed up my car and drove to Houston, got a job, worked my way through college, and pestered enough people to where I got a job at Mission Control Houston. It was. Everybody wanted to be part of the space program.
Oh, I'm sure.
I was fortunate my college roommate was already working for the prime contractor to Mission Control, and he kind of got me in there as an electronic technician.
That's so cool.
And so I was building those green consoles that you see in the Apollo movies and pictures and all the supporting hardware.
That's so cool.
And, yeah, when I watch Apollo 13, I look at all of the equipment and say, that's a D9 B12 module.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Ron Howard was an absolute fanatic on details.
Ah, okay.
The movie, from what everything that happened in Mission Control, where I was on the first night of Apollo 13, was 100% accurate. There was even a chubby little guy in the back of one of the rooms that looked like me.
Now I have to watch the movie again.
No kidding.
The scene where they are writing things on the blackboard because the overhead projector burned out, and they came to my office, the QA office, and we were the only ones in the building that had a Polaroid camera.
Uh-huh.
So that was my job for the first night of Apollo 13, was taking pictures of what they drew on the blackboard and
oh my gosh,
erasing it. So I don't think Ron Howard went to that much. I don't think he went to that much detail, but
oh my gosh, that is so awesome.
See that. In any event, I worked as an electronic technician. I worked in production control, one day the QA manager came up to me and he said, "Would you like to be a quality control engineer?" I said, "What is that?" He said, "Well, we think we can prevent defects instead of inspecting for them." And I said, "Hallelujah." I'm sitting here on the bench with my buddies building this stuff, and I've got an in-process inspector looking over my shoulder. I've got a government inspector. They were called DCAS back then. He's looking over my shoulder. And then I have to go through in-process inspection, final inspection before my work can move forward. And I said, I didn't wake up this morning intending to kill any astronauts. But, I mean, the work we did was, we did it out of passion, not necessarily just out of skill.
Yeah.
So I said, "Man, sign me up." And he did. There was 2 different groups formed called quality control engineering and reliability engineering, which didn't exist back then at all. And the prime contractor that I worked for was Ford Aerospace. So they gave me a business card that said quality control engineer on it, and all hell broke loose in the Texas Accreditation Board. You can't do that. You can't do that. Well, I understand years later that President Johnson actually intervened and told them to get over it.
Oh my gosh.
What was it they were upset about?
The word engineer.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
There were no programs for it back then. There was no body of knowledge. I mean, we created the body of knowledge.
Okay, gotcha.
By no means an equivalent, but when I worked for a previous company, we did something similar. Half of our quote engineers were not degreed, but they had worked in the industry so long, they knew AutoCAD, they knew the math, and so we slapped the label engineer on them. But we had a little bit of justification as to why. But again, not quite the same thing. But
no, it actually is. It's I'm glad a lot of these things have evolved into degreed occupations and certificates you can hang on the wall. But at the same time, the degreed people still have to prove that they can apply what they know.
Yep.
And that's sad right now. I listen to these people that are supposed to be eminent experts, and they live somewhere in the clouds.
Yeah.
Their education and their experience is limited to small environments, and then they come out in the world as quality experts, and it just doesn't fit sometimes.
No. And you run into that just in the quality world. You get someone that's got a certification as lead auditor, but that doesn't necessarily mean much.
Boy, we can have a whole podcast on auditing.
I'm not going to let either of you get started on auditors.
Oh, okay.
Not now. Thank you. Thank you for being the big boy in the room.
I'll get my wooden spoon.
There you go. Remember that on future podcasts.
Oh, that's what we need. We need to have a wooden spoon up here in the little prop from now
on. I'll get one. It's a business expense.
Right. We'll call it Darcy's reality check.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Oh.
So immediately we were taught how to do inspection of incoming hardware. We wrote the standards. We were by contract, we were involved in every design review that we had at Mission Control. That was part of our contract.
Yeah.
So they would throw me in these design reviews, and about 2/3 of the way through any given meeting, I do. Let me just ask one question. I was Columbo. I just have one little question, and that blew everything up. I mean, they're very talented people. Don't get me wrong, but I'd throw practicality in there and throw them off base. So
it sounds silly, but it's so easy to get caught up in all these crazy details, and you lose sight of the real problem you're trying to solve.
Well, let me tell you a little anecdote. I wasn't responsible for the decision, but the topic came up of how are we going to do video inside of a space capsule
Okay.
and on the moon. If you think back to the 60s, video cameras were they were huge. They were the size of a television set, and you couldn't scale down an image orthicon camera, and especially not color. It had to be color. And so in the design reviews, we wound up going back to the 1940s technology called flying spot scanners.
Okay.
It was a little tube that had a color wheel in front of it. And it kept rotating at a specific rate. And that became the color. So when it came back downlink, we built these 2 racks of equipment that took this flying spot scanner and converted it into NTSC and PAL and CCAM video for the networks.
That's so cool.
Like so many things, we just made up our minds and did it.
Wow.
And design reviews back then were incredibly pragmatic because, as soon as I heard that, oh yeah, we used to use that in ham radio. We played with that when I was a kid, which of course drew a wonderful reaction from the engineers.
Oh man. Well, that's so cool.
So somewhere in the early days of my venture into quality engineering, I somehow got put in charge of supplier quality.
Okay.
And for 10 years, I traveled to 47 states and Mexico and Canada qualifying suppliers. Now, again, in those days, we had MIL-Q 9858, we had MIL-I 45208, which had absolutely no applicability to a 5-man machine shop that was making brackets for us. So I would show up for an audit, and they would have a quality manual sitting on the desk, and their operational procedures and their work instructions. Here it is. Here's everything you need. When do we go to lunch? Because obviously you're going to approve us. You have no choice. I said, wait, hold on a minute. Let's walk out into the plant. Let's talk to the people. Well, what do you want to do that for? I just want to get a feeling if they know what you think they do.
Right.
And so, as well as I, without getting into auditing, when you actually talk to people, they said, well, right here it says you do this. Really? Is that what it says? That's not what my favorite thing is. Every place I've ever been had a Bubba. And everybody listened to Bubba instead of listening to
we had a guy who literally, I think his name was Joe, and I don't even know if it was Joseph, but everyone knew him as Bubba. And he was a Cajun as Cajun can be.
He was your cousin.
Yes. He could fix anything under the sun. You might not want to know how it got fixed, but he could fix anything.
Well, yeah, I lived 33 years in South Texas, so there have been plenty of cousins and plenty of Bubbas in my life, especially since I started doing pretty much what you're doing now is quality management for the oil patch.
Yep.
And so that was that in itself was quite an education.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing narratives instead of using this checklist I was given, and I would say, the quality manual says this, but in fact, when you go out on the production line, they're doing pretty much whatever they want to do, and they've got a 20% scrap rate, and I don't think these people are qualified to do business with us. And of course, that raised a furor when word got back to my contract monitor that I was actually disapproving suppliers. I was talking with someone yesterday about digital computers, the inventor of the PDP computer. I went up there to do an audit, and they threw me out. They said, if you want to buy a computer from us, you can just buy a computer from us. And
oh, wow.
So that went around the chain of NASA management because they wanted a PDP-11, or PDP-8 or whatever it was at that time. And as they say in the movie, we finally got their mind right, and they invited me back. They even gave me a helicopter ride to one of the plants.
Oh man, nothing quite so fun as that. But I had an instance where we had a coding vendor that we wanted to use, and various reasons, but they could do what we needed. They were local, but I went out to do the pre-qualification audit, and I came back and I'm talking to my manager. I'm like, ain't no way we can use these guys. Have you seen their shop? Have you seen how they do things? Like, well, they get us the product we need. I'm like, yeah, I'd be questionable about that. And that turned into, well, hey, Kyle, how about you just do everything necessary to get them certified to ISO 9001? I was like, oh. And so that's how I got started in consulting.
Wow. Thrown into the fire.
That's sometimes it's the worst, but best way to learn.
Well, that's what happened to me. I was director of training for a large multinational oil company, and I was developing self-directed work teams, and the carrot that was in front of me was if this division is successful, you'll be going all around the world training all of our divisions in self-directed work teams. So
okay,
that kind of plays to your ego. And we did. We built an incredible learning center. We had the production people and the engineers we did brown bag lunches, started out once a month, wound up being once a week because everybody wanted in. And
that's
we
cool.
all talked about the products and quality and workmanship. And after the first year, we published the results that we had an 88% increase in productivity, and the scrap rate had dropped to 0.
Oh,
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
I walked in, I was Of course we did that. And the division vice president looked at me and he said, do you know how much our device, they were called tools, they were devices that went in the drilling stream that measured all of the parameters that they needed to be watching as they drilled a well. And I said, I don't know. He said, $120,000 production cost. He said, do you know how much of that is labor? I said, no. He said, 4%.
Ooh.
He said, so all of your great work and great productivity that you've brought into the system doesn't mean a bloody thing.
Oh, that hurts.
And the parent company has called us and told us to close this division, to close the manufacturing part of the division, that they would do it somewhere else.
Oh.
But I had 90 days. I had my office for 90 days, and he handed me a copy of ISO 9000 1987. And he said, figure out what this is and tell us what we need to do, because our parent company was in Europe and they had to be certified.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got my start.
Oh my gosh.
But in my 10 years of supply chain management, as it's called today, I learned a great deal. And between that and all of the consulting and training I've done, I've worked with more than 700 companies.
That's so amazing.
And I'm blessed. Cool. I mean, absolutely blessed to have all of that anecdotal and experiential information in my quiver. And so it's, even though I'm an old man, I can still bring up anecdotal information at the drop of a hat and say, well, this company tried that and here's what happened.
Yeah. And
that has gone into me writing 12 books about the beneficial use of ISO 9000.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So how'd you transition from NASA to oil and gas?
Well,
I mean, it's all in Houston, but beyond that.
What happened was when I decided to leave NASA, I was told, you're not leaving, you're a lifer. I said, no, what they had me doing the last 6 months was qualifying minority businesses. They were trying to make a quota. and I was disqualifying some of them. They were just outright frauds.
Yeah.
And I found out my department manager was changing my audit results.
Oh.
Yeah. So I bid them farewell and went looking for a job, and was fortunate to get a job as quality manager of a manufacturing company in Houston, with the proviso that within 6 months I would also take over manufacturing.
Oh, wow.
And the deal with the owner was, we don't need a quality control group. I will help make the people that do the work responsible for their own work, responsible to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need an overhead function of quality control. And I did that for 3 successive companies. Unfortunately, they were all suppliers to the oil field when it was going in the toilet, and companies, all 3 companies closed just because the need for their products had diminished.
But that is unfortunately too common in oil and gas. When it's good, and when it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah, howdy, as we say in Texas.
I made the wonderful, wise decision to quit my job right in the middle of the last big slump and try to start my business. I got cussed out a lot of times making cold calls that first 6 months.
Well, sing it to me, because this job as training manager, they offered, they were an incredible company. They said, do you want to continue? We'll send you to an outplacement agency, and you can continue a career in senior management in industry, or we can train you to be a consultant. And without bothering to check with my wife, I said, oh yeah, consulting, that sounds great. And as you just lamented, we were eating sawdust and swill for about 6 months. And,
yeah.
And
I have said a number of times, if I had now, I'm not saying it's a regret, but had I known then what I would go through to get here today, I don't know if I'd done it. I don't regret it, but me 6-7 years ago would have said, heck no.
Well, think about it. We had a fire. We still have it, you and I. We have a fire in our belly because, like my partner used to say on issues of right and wrong, he'd say, by God, that just ain't right. And that motivated me over the years. I still do. I work tirelessly with companies trying to get them to see the breakthroughs, and you and I have talked about it with some of TQA's clients recently, is they're good companies, great people, good products and service, but you know what? It can be done a heck of a lot better. And then by some stroke of magic, just as you said, if I'd have known then, a local attorney called me and said, I got a case involving quality control problems. Can you help me? So he sent, a couple of days later, the truck showed up with box loads of paper, banker's box after banker's box.
Oh my gosh.
Of what they, in the legal business, they call it discovery.
So how'd your wife react to this influx of new temporary furniture?
Fortunately, today it's all done digitally. Thank you. In any event, I started reading through it. I figured, you know what I'm doing? I'm doing a desk audit. It's just like somebody sent me their quality manual, and I'm looking through it for, first of all, compliance with ISO 9001, because we've all accepted it as what I call the driver's license for businesses. It's the basic, on one day, you were able to demonstrate to your auditor that you complied with the standard.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're a great company? No. Does that mean you're a bad company? No. It just meant that on the day you took your driver's test, you passed.
I like that analogy.
So
I like that.
Okay, now what are you going to do with it? And so I'm reading through all this stuff, and I said, you know what? The defendant company did everything right in their supplying product to the plaintiff, the company that was suing, and the company that was suing wasn't following their own quality manual. And it was clear from just the data I had there. And of course, I requested more. Long story short, we wound up in federal court, and the judge kind of looked at me, and because I did the first PowerPoint presentation he'd ever had in his court. What did I know, right? And so at the end of the presentation, our attorney said, "Well, there you have it, Your Honor." And he said, "Damn, you're right. The plaintiff has no case whatsoever." And so I collected a nice, healthy fee, and I said, "This ain't bad. I can make two or three times what I make as a consultant by being an expert witness." And here we are, 42 cases later.
Oh, wow.
42 lawsuits later. And halfway through it, I was still very active with ASQ and with the quality community. I chaired the Quality Management Systems Committee for ASQ. And I went back to them and I said, "You know what? Our entire premise of quality management is fundamentally flawed.
I'm sure that was well accepted."
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, I have a number of analogies that I won't use. I still have, even though I don't live in Texas anymore, I still have more Texas euphemisms than I can count. So what I discovered was, in the discovery they sent me, they kept sending me pictures of dead people. People that had died in fires because a box fan caught on fire and killed a whole family, or a boom box. Similar stories. There was always some consumer product that it was used badly. I agree with that. The people that had a basket of clothes next to a space heater, but the company that built it should have foreseen that kind of stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stupid-proof your products, especially the consumers.
When I studied architecture for 3 years, never finished the program, and that's a whole other story. But I remember in my second year, we're supposed to be designing like these balconies and, different things like that. And we're asking like, well, how tall do we need to make this stuff? We're just asking basic questions because we don't know anything. And we're trying to figure out, like, do we need to go get a code book somewhere? They said, no, you need to use the drunk frat boy test. I'm like, drunk frat boy test? He said, yeah. Imagine your space is full of 20 and 30 rowdy drunk frat boys. Design it so none of them die.
I'll borrow that one from you.
But yeah, it's the same type thing. And we do that with our software as well. We'll design something on it, and sure enough, like we'll deploy one of the updates, and we'll use some of our clients, and they know we're doing it, but we'll use some of our clients kind of, hey, test this out. Tell me what you think. And sure enough, they do something bonehead with it we'd never considered, but it was capable of being done. And so if it can be done, they will.
Well, every consulting assignment I've had in the last 20 years has been, sooner or later, we had a stupid proofing meeting. The thing, we went off site, and this thing was, purge your brain of everything you know about your product, and think about all of the stupid people that in your life, and let's talk about what they could possibly do with your product.
Yeah.
And every time it was extremely enlightening, so I went back to the quality community and I said, you know what? Six Sigma teaches that there is an acceptable defect rate.
Mm-hmm.
It can be quantified mathematically.
Mm-hmm.
Tell that to the people that died in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, sorry, you were out of the Six Sigma tolerance. Bad on us. We bad. And I said the second thing is, our fundamental tenets of quality management are not to eliminate risk or eliminate defects. They are to minimize them and make them acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you guys are nuts. And at the time, I had some standing because as the chair of the Quality Management Systems Committee, we were helping to build the body of knowledge for the Certified Quality Manager Organizational Excellence certification that ASQ gives out. And boy, we caught it. I caught it mostly because I was trying to get a one-sentence definition of quality management out of my committee of 13 people.
But that was fun.
Well, I finally gave up. We wrote 3 anthologies. I published 3 anthologies with 13 white papers on what the definition of quality management was. And I went, I enjoyed my time on the committee. I'm going to go do something that has some meaning.
Yeah.
So those things are just they were imbued in my personality and my thinking. Every time I do a case now, it's the first thing I think of is, holy cow, here's another example where a consumer used a product poorly or badly, but the company didn't foresee this possible use.
Yep.
And if that's not built into everything now, the work I'm doing right now, writing the Minister of Quality Training Program, as it will be soon known worldwide, was to do that, to say, number one, your vision, mission, and values in your company should be never to deliver a defective product.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same old zero defects philosophy.
Correct.
It just says in the processes within your company, it should be impossible to get a defect from one work center to the next. Right?
Makes sense.
Certainly, it should be impossible to get it out the door.
Yeah.
Well, that's an abstraction. Many people still don't buy into that. Well, we're all human. Well, yeah, I'm as human as you are.
Yeah.
I make mistakes. I've made many, many mistakes.
But you should have systems in place to catch them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we do?
I run into this more, I guess, on the safety side of things than the quality side. But, safety side, you've got these mantras of no accidents, no incidents. And they just run around preaching this and preaching it. Zero incidents, zero incidents, zero incidents. It's like, well, that's great. But for the fact that when someone gets hurt, they just don't report it because they don't want to be the guy that had the incident. And it's like, okay, well, we've got to, and it's the same thing with the zero defects. It's like, okay, we've got to do better than just preach zero defects. It's like, okay, how are we going to actually catch it? Because it's not going to be that there are zero defects.
And what are we going to do when we catch it?
Yes, exactly. And I just hate, but people love to latch on to these slogans and mantras, and then that's as deep as they go. And it's like, no, you just created a gotcha culture and not anything for improvement.
Absolutely. And I've been working with the Kaizen Institute, Quality Digest, and Exemplar Global for the last 2 years, developing this training material. And any day now, we're doing final edits right now. We're going to publish BMS 9001 2023. It's designed as a guidance document, not a conformance standard, but it picks up where ISO 9001 2015 leaves off.
Yeah.
In the light of the fact that ISO said we're not going to revise it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're leaving the entire world of quality hanging by its fingernails, wondering how to have quality evolve with industry, with AI, with with all of this, the technology. And so we're providing a guidance for people to be, number one, defect never reaches a customer. Number two, get rid of risk management and do risk avoidance.
Yes.
Because, why manage risk when you can get rid of it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's a whole other fun topic. So I won't jump down that rabbit hole just yet.
Me too. Darcy, keep us in control, Darcy.
Not that I did a whole lot with it, but I was on the TC 176 committee for about a year. And I'm,
Bless you, my son.
Oh, gosh. And so I'm reading all of these drafts of stuff that they're talking about and, what they want to add to the standard. And I get one and they're talking about adding agile thinking to it. And I'm like, no, No, agile. Okay, look, I get it. Agile is a legitimate software development method, but let's be honest. Most people say they're agile developers when they have no plan and they want to show you what the plan looked like at the end of the project. Like, let's not do that for design and development.
Absolutely. When I saw a draft of, I attended a TC 176 subcommittee meeting at some conference, and they spent the entire time debating the words continuous and continual.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Because they didn't translate.
They do a live webinar of that? Because I remember sitting and watching. I'm like, guys, y'all are killing me here.
Thank you. I hope that's the meeting I was in because I had to get up and leave.
I couldn't finish watching it. I got mad.
In German, it means continuous means that it never stops.
Yes.
And continuum means that it's just something we do all the time. And I'm listening.
Yes.
Come on, guys, get a life.
Yes. I couldn't finish it either. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. And then I saw one where they were talking. In case, whole other rabbit trail. I'll stop.
Well, when I saw a draft in 9001 2015, and it said risk-based thinking, I did the same exact thing you did. What are you talking about?
Yeah, this is a brand new word that means nothing.
You guys obfuscate everything to start with, and now you're doing it professionally. I mean, you're doing it as a matter of, let's go in there and screw up the entire quality world. You know.
Hey, life never stops.
Well, let's put a term in there that the management consulting firms will take on, and they will make a lot of money teaching courses on risk-based thinking.
Yup.
And
that is
the auditors will try to audit it.
Yes. And I tell everyone, like, look, just go look at Annex A4. Just look at A4 in the standard. It explains it. Nothing you're doing is what the standard intended. Just go read A4.
It's not in paragraph 4 to 10.
No.
It's in an annex.
I know.
Right?
I know.
And so, I mean, I think they were doing. I'm Karnak the Magnificent. Let me say an answer. Risk-based thinking.
Oh my God.
Let's see what's in the envelope.
Oh, geez. I think that's probably good enough spot to stop here. But no, Tom, like, this is just phenomenal. Like, you just got such a fun story, fun background. And so before we leave, I'd love for folks to get a chance to read some of your books, check out your trainings. Give us real quick, where can they find more information for you? I'll make sure it's all in the comments below too.
The website is tomtaormina.com. Very clever name. I paid an agency.
Creative.
I paid an agency to come up with that.
The Tom Taormina agency.
Yeah. No, I actually had to pay money for that. I mean, they came to me one day and said, "You are the product." Said, okay, I like productivity resources better. No, you're the product. So it's tomtaormina.com. You have my contact information and background information. And these days I'm doing my consulting work through TQA. So,
and we are thrilled to have you. It has been just quite the breath of fresh air to get what's for us some new ideas and new perspective. But
and you stimulated me with new ideas that you've come up with. Your online documentation system is exquisite.
Well, thank you.
It's the best I've seen.
Thank you. That is quite the compliment.
So let's keep this unholy alliance going.
Awesome. Well, hey, I will make sure that your info is below for anyone that wants to find out. And hey, everyone, thank you very much for joining us today for the conversation. Be certain, obviously, like, subscribe, all the good stuff we're all supposed to say on here. But this is a lot of fun. So, Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.